It was the car of tomorrow, with futuristic engineering and pioneering safety features that were way ahead of their time. He was also a man with exceptional ideas and an uncrushable spirit. Together, the two make for an epic story of post-war optimism, forward-thinking automotive design, and government interference that brought down a promising new car company. This is everything you need to know to get up to speed on Tucker. Born in 1903, Preston Tucker grew up outside of Detroit. And like all good Motor City kids, he loved cars since he was little. At 16, he was already buying used cars to fix up and sell for a profit. A few years later, he worked as an office boy at Cadillac headquarters, on the Ford assembly line, and ran a gas station. Tucker would do anything as long as it involved cars. He even had 3 separate stints as a police officer just to drive the souped-up cop cars. His mom wasn't too stoked on that, but she didn't have to worry long because he soon got fired for making some custom mods on his police cruiser. But it wasn't the kind of mod you're thinking of. Oh God, man, it's freaking freezing in here. I could really use some heat. Yeah, that's better. Tucker! You can't cut holes in your police cruiser. But Chief, you're through, Tucker. I don't even know why I gave you this badge and this gun 3 times. You're like 16 years old. I assume this is the past and things are different back now, but still, it seems very odd that a teenager would have 3 different stints as a police officer. In the early 1930s, Tucker started spending a lot of time at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway because what red-blooded Detroit native car lover wouldn't also love the Indy 500? There, he met Harry Miller. Miller was a great engineer, but not a good businessman, and he went bankrupt. So Tucker talked Miller into starting a business developing race cars with him. They worked together for the next 10 years, and Tucker became a well-known name around the car biz. He also met John Eddie Offutt at Indy, another mechanic who would play a part in the creation of Tucker's car of the future. When the prospect of World War II loomed in 1939, Tucker moved from Indianapolis back to Michigan and... What the is that word? Y-P-S-I-L. Who the names a city that? Back to Michigan and opened the Ypsilanti Machine and Tool Company. He and Miller dabbled in everything from high-speed armored combat vehicles and gun turrets to airplane engines throughout the war, but none of it panned out. What Tucker really wanted to do was build his long-held idea of the first completely new car in 50 years. The big 3 Detroit automakers hadn't debuted anything for several years. You know, because of the war. The great one? That gave smaller automakers an opportunity to fill the gap. Tucker really wanted to be an automaker. He had a streamlined concept created by designer George S. Lawson. It had 2 doors that stretched up into the sloping roofline, headlamps mounted on pivoting front fenders that turned when quartering, and a fixed center, that's right, center headlight. The car was supposed to have a fuel-injected rear-mounted 589 cubic inch aluminum flat-6 engine with hydraulic valve train and 2 hydraulically driven torque converters powering the rear wheels instead of a normal drivetrain. No traditional transmission or anything. Weird. Tucker advertised the ultra-modern, safety-oriented torpedo concept in Science Illustrated magazine, and the public ate it up. But Lawson's design was too far-fetched, and after 2 years of work, he still wasn't able to give Tucker a real car he could show to potential buyers. So in 1946, former Auburn/Cord/Duesenberg/Dub-Dub-2 jet designer Alex Tremulous took over design. What he sketched up in just 6 days ended up being the ultimate production car's ultimate form. Tremulous kept the modern fastback look, but turned it into a realistic design. He added 2 more doors and made the center Cyclops eye headlight pivot when the steering angle was at more than 10 degrees, while the outer headlights stayed fixed. To get the car into production as fast as possible, the rotating fenders were axed. Tucker's wish list called for magnesium wheels, fuel injection, disc brakes, seat belts, safety glass, a built-in roll bar, a padded dashboard, and independent springless
suspension. By the time Tremulous came along, Tucker had already signed a lease on the biggest factory in the world, the Dodge Chicago Aircraft Engine Plant. It had 475 acres that Tucker was sure could produce an entire auto lineup. But he had to raise $15 million in less than a year to pull it off. And that was gonna be tough, because that's a lot of money now, and that's even more money back then. So Tucker raised the money by arranging one of the first ever company stock IPOs and selling dealership rights for the car that didn't even exist yet. This was all pretty unusual. And at the time, the US Securities and Exchange Commission was keeping a close eye on small upstart automakers. So the SEC was like, dude, there's a huge possibility that this car is gonna flop. And Tucker was all, no way, man, this is gonna be huge. Look, you put in those dealer contracts that there's a good chance that this goes south, or we're shutting you down. Fine, God, I'll change the contracts. I'm not trying to defraud anybody, I'm trying to revolutionize the auto industry, man. Tucker started advertising the future Tucker 48 in early 47. He called it a car ahead of its time and made the ridiculous claim that 15 years of testing had gone into it. But even Tucker's wife, Vera, thought the ad was kind of misleading. The SEC agreed with Vera and filed away the misleading ad as ammunition in the looming investigation. In the meantime, the first prototype was being built, and development of the new 589 flat-six engine was underway with the help of fuel injection expert Ben Parsons. It was designed to have 200 horsepower and run at an ultra-low RPM, like 1,000 RPM at 60 miles an hour. But the innovative hydraulic valve operation required high oil pressure and a 24-volt electrical system. The engine needed 60 volts to start up and cranked for a long time. A world premiere party was scheduled at the Chicago factory for June of 1947. So there had to be a working prototype to show the crowd regardless of problems. Tucker's engineers managed to put together a semi-functional car built around a 1942 Oldsmobile and called it the Tin Goose. But the Tin Goose didn't have a reverse gear, and 2 of the independent suspension arms broke under the car's own weight the night before the premiere.
Oh, talk about bad timing.
It was repaired so it could roll again, but the 589 engine was extremely noisy and difficult to start. But Tucker would not be fazed. He told the band to play extra loud to cover the thunderous engine noises and made sure they played the whole night. The press reported that the car couldn't back up and that it drove goose geese down the road. Must be hipster 1940s lingo. Driving goose geese down the road. Hey there, Governor. Look like you got a little slack in your step. You need a peppy pickup? Try Edmunds cocaine pills. Is your baby making teething noises? Give him some Edmunds cocaine pills and a bottle of whiskey. That's medicine back now. Desperate for an engine, he found that the 166 horsepower Franklin 0335 flat-six used in Bell 47 helicopters would work. Tucker's son and his old Indy 500 buddy, Eddie Alford, converted it from air-cooled to water-cooled, though no one is sure why. More than 18,000 miles worth of full throttle testing, actual testing this time, proved the engine's reliability. So Tucker bought the entire engine company. Then he canceled all their aircraft contracts to focus on automotive engine production. Turns out that was 65% of all the US's post-war aviation engine production contracts. The transmission was a whole nother boondoggle. The only thing that seemed like it would work was a 1930s cord transmission, so they scavenged 22 of them from junkyards and adapted some of them to work with the Tucker 48's rear engine layout. They were always fragile though, and couldn't handle the power of the 335 cubic inch flat-six. Engineers at Tucker's machine and tool company redesigned the cord tranny and strengthened it to create their own unit called the Tucker Y1. Why? Because it was built in Ypsilanti. The Y1 transmission had an electric vacuum shift mechanism connecting it to the column shifter instead of a mechanical linkage. And it had problems too. Tucker brought in Warren Rice, creator of the Buick Dynaflow in the Roadmaster. Rice and the engineering team came up with the Tucker Matic, which was really an early CVT. It had 2 torque converters and only 27 moving parts compared with traditional modern day automatics. It was revolutionary, but only 2 Tucker Matics were ever installed in the cars. The engine and transmission were mounted on a separate subframe that only used 6 bolts, so the whole drivetrain could be dropped in half an hour. Tucker imagined that an engine needing work could just be quickly and easily swapped with a loaner engine. That sounds a lot like Tesla's battery swap program, only Tucker thought of it about 30 years before Elon Musk was even born. The strangeness continued with the 4-wheel independent suspension. Instead of steel springs, components were made of Firestone rubber that was vulcanized to get a specific spring rate, similar to the Indy 500 race cars Tucker had worked on. They ended up being super stiff, which was good for handling, but made removing the rear wheels tough since there wasn't any suspension droop. As with any brand new car's development, plenty of things didn't work out the way Tucker hoped. The fuel injection, disc brakes, magnesium wheels, and his fancy transmission all hit the cutting room floor. But a lot of his innovative ideas made it through to production. All the instrumentation and car controls were within reach of the driver at the time when gauges and knobs were usually spread out across the whole dash. Glove boxes were on the door panels to keep the area under the padded dashboard a clear crash zone for better safety. It also kept the integrated roll bar in the roof and the pop-out shatterproof windshield, concepts that were proved in endurance testing at Indianapolis Motor Speedway when Offutt rolled a Tucker 48 3 times at 95 miles per. And the car was still drivable. Despite all the troubles, the Tucker Corporation had 1,900 employees and was actively building pre-production cars. And the public was still excited to see the car of tomorrow become a reality. The company needed more money, so Tucker came up with the idea for a Tucker Accessories program. It raised $2 million more by guaranteeing buyers a spot on the waiting list for the new car if they pre-purchased accessories like radios, seat covers, luggage. Who would do that? Sounds nuts. That was the final straw for the SEC, and in 1948, a formal investigation of Tucker Corporation began. The government thought the company just wanted to scam people out of their money and never planned to build a car. In 1949, all Tucker Corporation files were turned over to authorities, and Tucker and 6 other company executives were indicted on charges of violating SEC regulations and conspiracy to defraud. The SEC leaked its reports to the press, and negative coverage of the trial cast doubt on the company in the public's mind. Tucker felt that government politics had been foiling his plans all along, and he was unfairly taking the brunt of their aggression. In October, the Chicago factory shut down after having built only 37 cars. But about 300 of the most loyal employees came back to build 13 more, some even without pay. Over the course of the 4-month trial, Tucker proved he really was trying to make a car of tomorrow a reality. And all charges were dropped in January of 1950. Unfortunately, by then, both the Tucker Corporation's reputation and its finances were ruined. Amazingly, Tucker didn't let the whole debacle crush his spirit, saying even Henry Ford failed on his first try. Over the next few years, he linked up with some Brazilian investors to develop a new sports car called the Carioca, I think. After all the hardships he'd endured, right as the resilient Preston Tucker was ready to try again, he learned that his next battle would be one that he couldn't win. Lung cancer was the one thing that finally slowed him down. He died in 1956. He was 53 years old, and the Carioca never came to be. Without Tucker, we might not have many of the safety features that cars have today. Laminated safety glass and crumple zones are just 2 of the now standard elements that Tucker pioneered. Today, 47 of the 51 Tucker 48s are still around, and they're some of the rarest classic cars of all time. A lot of them are on display in museums, and they don't come up for sale often. And when they do, they go for a lot of coin. Like this one that sold at Barrett Jackson for $3 million in 2012. Though the company never got off the ground and the cars were few, Tucker's remarkable story and innovative ideas made a lasting mark on the auto industry. Big thanks to the Peterson Museum for letting us shoot in their vault. Tuckers are hard to find, and they have the only one we know of. Yo, we make a video every single day. To make sure you don't miss any of them, click on this subscribe button right here. Check out this episode of Up to Speed. Check out this episode of Up to Speed. Follow me on Instagram at James Pumphrey. Follow Donut on Instagram at Donut Media. I love you.